I guess the show wouldn't go off without a hitch unless I had some technical difficulties, right? My song normally that would intro us for some reason doesn't want to load as this new update on our platform goes arise. But hey, we're here, and I am absolutely pleasured for an evening with Kathy Moore. You know, if you look at the background, and I do these themes often, I like to put a theme to each person. Now, Kathy Moore is no space explorer or rocket scientist, as far as I know. I have not seen in the highlights of me learning about her. But one thing that I do know is. In my last interview with Keith Ash, Keith called her an out of this world musician, a joy, and someone that he enjoyed sharing the stage with. So, tonight's highlights, as we can see, is space themed. And there's a trio for the project she has currently, and we'll talk more about that. But let's get right to it. Kathy, thank you so much for coming on to the Touring Fan Live and chatting with us for a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
You know, we got to talk a little bit beforehand, and one of the cool things about talking to people like you, I have a daughter, and I just like talking to women in the industry that really are a powerhouse and someone that are really, just driven to play and just do what they love and have passion behind that you could hear when you're listening to the music. And when I was digging into your music, especially when we first started talking a couple of weeks ago about coming on to the show, I went down this rabbit hole, and the one thing I heard consistently through your music was the passion, the drive, and like just someone that really cared about what was coming through. And I just loved it. So, for me as a father of someone that, my daughter's very interested in music, I love that because it's something that she can have people to look up to, like yourself, to, want to do something in that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes a big difference. When I was growing up, it was people like Nancy Wilson and Wendy Melvoin and Jennifer Batten, people that I could hear really playing their instrument. And I also was surrounded by some women who really were improvising on piano and bass and stuff like that. And so when you have all these examples, it makes you want to play music and know that you can do it. And then also I had a lot of really amazing mentors that were men and women. So I
Yeah, I
looked
mean,
out, I had all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I love the shirt. Ramones are one of my top five favorite bands of all time. As we have the show coming up in a few months, the greatest American bands of all time, the Ramones are in my top five. Like, I
Yeah.
believe, they created a music scene. They created something that was fast to the point. It was, something beautiful. There's something beautiful about the Ramones. They were kind of like my generation's Beatles in a way. Like that
Oh yeah.
was, something different. And it's hard to explain to some people, but I don't love the Ramones, and kind of that fits that whole like love of music and bringing it all together. Um, Talking about Ramones, like that's what I grew up on. That's what I loved as a kid and stuff. Do you remember thinking back to when you were a child, like what made you fall in love with music?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Well, my dad was a great musician. So I always said that his voice was like Roy Orbison had a baby with Mario Lanza. And then his guitar playing was like Johnny Cash guitar player, that train stuff. And then he was just a really great natural pianist. And we would just, like, your daughter was sitting on your lap early on. We would just sit on his lap while he played the piano, or we would sing with him. And we were harmonizing pretty young with him. He was just a great musician. So that was the first thing. Everything about our existence, and we were poor, but we felt so rich because we had so much music, and it was our community together. And then for some reason, when I was a kid, Elton John, like just hearing "Someone Save My Life Tonight" and songs like that, even stuff like "Don't Go Breaking My Heart," or
Mm.
I mean, I think you have your in with some sort of music that you connect with. And we also, even things like Beth by Kiss.
Oh, oh, God, love that song.
Yeah.
Kiss is in my top five greatest American bands of all time. People argue with me all the time. I just think but Kiss God, Beth is a great song because you feel like that you know the one thing I love about music is like you feel the story, right? Like you start
Yeah.
visualizing a story with it, and like
Mhm.
that song to me, listening to Beth, like I visualize like this guy in the garage like playing, and this woman just at home waiting for her husband to get home, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it's great. That's God, I love that song. It's weird hearing it was Eric Carr is the drummer now singing it instead of well, I can't think of his original name, but it's just weird
Peter,
hearing it.
was it Peter Chris?
Peter Chris wrote the song, yeah, and then Peter
Oh.
Chris didn't give it to him, and then Eric Carr did it. I don't know. It's a whole Kiss is a whole weird situation. That's we can go down a rabbit hole of Kiss stuff. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's a great song.
Yeah, and all those songs were so dramatic, like in the best way. And so, between the stuff that because my dad was singing basically Hank Williams Sr. and Johnny Cash and all that
Mm.
stuff, and Glenn Campbell, and so that kind of country music, and then lots of gospel in my childhood, and then um, just all this music was so sad and wrung, and so I was really drawn to that. But I liked rock. I liked heavy guitars, and I think I'm just a product of my generation too. So I remember the first time I heard "Stairway to Heaven,"
Mm.
thinking, "How is that possible that that could happen in the world? That the guitar sounds like that and the voice is like that, and it has all these parts, and they flow seamlessly together." And I didn't even know it was because of the guitar that I loved it. I mean, I love it for many reasons, but the guitar on that is so great.
It really is, and one thing that I do love is like production. Like I love like knowing how things work together. And it recently broke my heart. I was listening to the Robert Plant Howard Stern interview, and he asked like he's like, "Hey, how did Stereo to Heaven come together?" He's like, "I don't know. We put it together in like I don't know, it was like 2.5 hours." And I'm like, "What? Like wait, what? Like that song was put together like I can't it listen I still been working on a concept album, a 5 song concept album for like 15 years. I know exactly what I can't write one song, but this song, which is damn near perfect, 2.5 hours, come on now.
But haven't you had that experience where you're working forever to get a song and it's not coming around, and it could even be months later, and you're like, man, if I could just find this one part, this would be so good. And then the song that you write that's perfect, you write in 2 minutes. It's like you didn't write it, that you were just blessed with it coming to you or whatever, and you can't take credit for it at all. I mean, I feel like a lot of the really good things that you write just happen upon you. And hopefully your ears were there to catch them.
It's I wasn't blessed with the ability to play instruments really well. I mean, I moved to where I am now because I was in a band and whatever case may be. But I just was never gifted enough to be anything more than just the fill-in piece. I always wanted to. I just never had. I was just never patient enough to sit down and do the hours that it would take to really craft that. So I'm very envious and jealous of musicians that really listening to like a Tom Morello talk about, in college he would study for 4 hours and then he'd play guitar for 8 hours, and listening to people like God, Ace Frehley talking about, just sitting in his room and getting lost in music, or listening to Mike McCready talk about how he still takes lessons, and you would know about that, about to perfect his craft because he wants to be the best that's out there, and I still think he is one of the best out there, but it's just it's I get very jealous because I just don't have listen I'd love listen I'm jealous of the idea of like people jumping in a van and like that and being going across country and going to those bars and playing to just a few people, but like getting people to appreciate music, because one of the things that I really have learned over the god years is like it's sometimes the stuff that you don't hear is some of the best things out there. But no, I'm just so envious of the music ability, or I mean not envious. I don't know if that's jealous. I don't know. Whatever. It's not me. But yeah, it's just amazing. Like listening to your guitar playing and the way that you've put things together. It's like, I'm like, God, did she just come out with a guitar in hand, like mom and the baby guitar's there, and she just starts playing? Because I mean, it just looks so difficult. It sounds so flawless. Like it just comes so easy, but it's just I know how difficult it is to do what you're doing.
Yeah, it's weird because I grew up, I played flute and piano and I sang, and I did that for years. And the guitar came later, but what happened was I picked it up and fell in love with it, and then I couldn't stop practicing. And so that's when I started practicing for hours and hours and hours. And before that, I played music all day long, but I really wasn't practicing to build a skill. So the guitar, there was something about it. I just wanted to figure it out. It's like this puzzle. I still feel that way. I still find it so fascinating, and I love to learn. And I think that what you were saying about Mike, and I would say this probably about Robert Fripp, about anybody that's great, like those guys are, that they will not stop learning. I mean, I've even heard that about like Jerry Garcia would take books with him on the road and just like
Wow.
try to learn new skills to put into his playing. And how cool is that? You know, that people are not done and they realize that they aren't done. They never will be. Nobody is. Nobody will ever master the guitar. No one will ever master music.
It's it's like Tim DiGiulio, who is
Yeah. Awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
How he's not, I mean, it's when one of my favorite stories to tell about Tim is the first time I met Mike, I said, I went over to him like, listen, I'm just a fanboy for 5 seconds. I think you're one of the greatest guitarist players I've ever seen live, yada yada yada. And he said, if you think I'm good, just watch this. And it was at Flight to Mars sound check, and they were sound checking Purple Rain, and
Oh,
holy Christmas
yeah.
tree. If
I know.
Tim DiGiulio did, and then I've just, Tim is just absolutely a talent. It's just this. That's the one thing I've always loved, and this is why I love interviewing people from the Pacific Northwest, because there is this like this fence. I don't know what it is of these musicians locked into this state of just talent, raw talent, and it just seems like everybody works with everybody. And you
Yeah.
guys, and it's like if you look at the linear notes of people working together, you guys are just like working together and and it's just, you guys support everybody, but you guys are putting out some of the best music that is out there that is just absolutely stellar stuff. It's amazing. I don't know how to explain it. It's just great.
There's something in the water. I think that what happens is that when people are around each other and they love to play with other musicians, it's like they're drinking from the same pool or something. Everyone, was it all boats float or whatever? I mean, it's really inspiring to be around people like Tim DiGiulio and Mike McCready and Igor Abelodz and
Mm.
R.L. Heyer and Whitney Petty and Lori Miller. And, I could just go down a list and Jeff Rouse and Keith Ash and, my band that's really incredible, the musicians in my band. I mean, my band, one of the things I really love about Kathy Moore's Superpower Trio is that we're improvising musicians. And so even though all the songs are set, they can go anywhere on a given night. And that to me is always the most exciting music, is when you don't hear what you heard on the album, because otherwise you would just buy the album and listen to it and enjoy that. So I love that they want to do that's where they come from too. So yeah, it's a really good scene here of, I mean, and all over, like during quarantine, I've been entertained by some of the great, like last night I watched Jeff Fielder play and he's unbelievable. And, or I could watch RL play with Joe Doria, or, I mean, I've just played with Stephanie Johnson, who has one of the best voices that I could think of, or Jen Ayers, or, Kim Virant, I could just keep
Mm.
going down the list. Have you talked to Kim Virant?
I have not. I had her husband on. We had
Oh,
a benefit show. I did a benefit show a couple months ago. It was this thing that we were raising money for Parkinson's, and he introduced Carrie Ockery, that she was
yeah,
singing on the show, which her voice is just,
I know.
oh my goodness, chill factor. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I've never. That's definitely someone that's on my radar of people that need to, that I would love to just rope on in to, yeah, get going.
Yeah, I mean, we just have so, and there's a scene that's happening here that's really important too, which is, Aaron Jones is making it big out of the scene um, of Black Rock that's really happening in Seattle right now, and it's really exciting. So, like, I could just go down the list of really great musicians, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is, and that's it's great. Now we were talking. You had mentioned the Kathy Moore Power Trio, but I want to ask this because I think this is one I love this. Do you remember the first band you were in?
Yes.
What was the band's name?
Four.
Just Ford?
Because there were four of us.
There's four. That's the simplest band name I think anyone's ever said. Usually there's a very elaborate name.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
simplest.
Four.
Now, was it just the number four, or was it spelled out like FORUR?
It was nothing close. The number four.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
darn clever. That's
We enjoyed it.
I can imagine. So now you are you originally from the Pacific Northwest, or are you transplanted up there?
So I lived in Oregon, and my first band was in Long Beach, California. That the band for. We
Hmm.
were all listening to Fishbone and Jane's Addiction,
Hmm.
uh, and that was what was happening. But and then I've been here for a very long time. I've been here for almost, I don't know, a long time, decades.
Mm.
So so it feels
Well,
like I've been here more than anywhere else. Like I lived in Long Beach for 5 years. Can't really call myself a Long Beacher, but I enjoyed my time there.
but you're up in the Pacific Northwest now. Let's talk about the band you're in now. So it's three of you, and you were and how long has this? Because I know you just put an album out back in March of this year, which is unique because that even in March of this year there was still the unknown of where when could you tour with that? And I always and I, it's weird because in this time I think like I know a lot of musicians held on to music because of like it's like Pearl Jam's Gigaton. It came out and it's going to be over a year and a half before they even play one of those
Yeah.
songs. So how does that translate to when an album comes out they tour right away? So putting an album out during the pandemic, was that a difficult decision? How did you come to terms with like putting that out when it came out?
Yeah. Well, I think it's this whole time has been unknowable. So we were going to put it out a year ago, so probably March of last year. And it didn't seem like the right time to do it because, we were in our house. So I guess it was April. So I kept delaying, but I would release a song here and there. And I did a whole bunch of other things. Like I spent this whole time learning Logic and recording quarantine albums and doing collaborations with people all over. So, I did stuff with Jeff Fielder and Jeff Rouse and people all over the city, Sean Bates, whatever, Kim Virant. So about this year, I'm like, well, we don't know if we're ever going to get out of our house, so let's just put it out. And we had already been doing live video streams, and actually, I really enjoyed doing that. I think a lot of people didn't enjoy doing live video streams. We had three, and I loved doing all of them. And one of them was we did Pink Floyd's album Animals.
Wait,
So
you covered Pink
yeah,
Floyd's Animals?
yeah, yeah.
How do I not know this? That's my
I'll send
favorite.
it to you.
Oh my, that is my favorite Pink Floyd album. I just I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but like during quarantine, my thing was like I am gonna go back and listen to albums in its entirety,
Yeah,
and I dug into Pink Floyd's catalog, and I'm like, I think Animals might be their greatest album.
it is.
I mean, Dog. I mean, it's 5 songs. Dogs is probably one of the greatest songs they've ever written.
It is.
It's oh god,
And it's like Dogs is like 20 songs.
it really is. It's crazy because the one great dynamic of Pink Floyd was the fact that you could have Roger Waters, who was very unique in his vocal tones, his element of lyric style, and how the song was played to his like to benefit him, right? And then David Gilmour, which was very much more guitar driven. His lyrics they weren't as politically driven as Roger Waters were. It was different, but like that song was like this mesh of both of them that was like combined of so many songs. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny too. When we went to do that album, I was surprised at how much of it I didn't have to physically transcribe by looking at or listening to because it's so in my head. So occasionally I can transcribe my memories of something, and I think that's so odd. But like the solo for Dogs, almost all of it I transcribed from my memories of the song
Wow.
Dogs. And when I went to like check on it, because I wanted to do a good job, I was like, hey, that's pretty much the solo to Dogs. I mean, and that's how much like a great. So you were talking about concept album. I like that too. And the Cat Wears Your Pride Trio album all strings together, probably because of that same love of a Pink Floyd album that will connect together and go through different places that you're not really expecting. And I love that. So the other thing that happened was my friend RL and I did an acoustic version of Animals. So we did the whole album on acoustic guitars with sound. You know, we had distortion and stuff, but and that was really fun and kind of terrifying because we didn't plan it, we didn't practice for it. We were just like, okay, we're gonna do it. It's a live stream, and so we just hung on from the beginning to end, and it was pretty. It was pretty, fun. Like that's one of the most fun I had of being terrified and filled with joy at the same time.
Wow. God, that's well, the one thing I think the one thing that always fascinated me about Pink Floyd or any bands that did this, I love the idea of a concept album that's something that told a story from beginning to end. I think that's why The Wall was so successful at its time was it was basically before the movie came out, you visualized a story throughout the whole thing. Like you came up with this concept of based off the artwork, and that's what are these characters on the cover and how do they translate to a story of what was Pink. But no, yeah, I always romanticize the idea of this. I have this idea of a concept album written down, imagery and everything. I've had it 15 years. Just I'm not talented enough to pull it all together. But yeah, no, I just Pink Floyd is God. It's so difficult to think that musicians that are so talented have all this gifts in the world like just broke up, and I never had the opportunity to see them together, like Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin, before, unfortunately, when before Harrison passed, or even Lennon, that the Beatles, like you have everything. And I know they have there's differences, but just not to give us more. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm selfish in that way of like just wanting more from them. Just keep draining me. You keep, put that needle in and give me more from that talent that you have.
Well, it's really hard to understand how some people have this really long career, and like Nick Cave keeps putting out great music. I saw King Crimson twice in the last like 7 years, and some of the best music I've ever seen live. Adrian Bluth keeps writing music, putting out great music. Just on and on. There's still people putting out great music year after year. Neil Young is my favorite songwriter, and the thing I love about him is that when he hits an album, it's so great. Like I don't know if you listen to Neil Young much, but the
Yeah.
album La Noise,
Mm-hmm.
that so incredible, and it sounds like him, it totally sounds like him, but it sounds like Daniel Lanois too. So it's a really creative take on the Neil Young world.
Yeah, the I wasn't a huge Neil Young fan growing up, but it wasn't until I got a little bit older, and then you can hear from Pearl Jam consistently mentioning Neil Young, so it drives you to that, and that's one thing I've always appreciated about artists, like bringing other artists together or make you go back and listen to some things, because sometimes, like, I think like my son, who's he's 11, like he doesn't appreciate like he's young, he's too young to understand some of the music. I'm like, hey Bray, listen. He's like, I don't get it, it is what it is. But it's like, well, maybe as you get older, like maybe something will be like influenced from something he listens to now by that, and that would kind of tie it together. But sometimes you don't appreciate things at a younger age, and then it's a little bit later in life. And Neil Young was definitely something that it was later on in life, and same thing with like Tom Petty, that it was later on in life that you start realizing like how talented those people are, and how you don't recognize it until it's brought back to you, or I guess suppose.
Well, that's the thing too with Neil Young. Like, let's say you don't like Neil Young, but you love Dinosaur Jr. and Radiohead and all the grunge movement, and Lucinda Williams, and just kind of going down all these people that were influenced by Neil Young, and then also have influenced another generation of musicians themselves. So, but the first time I saw Neil Young in concert, he was playing with all these grunge bands because they had kind of adopted him as their godfather. And so, yeah, but he also just writes a good song with good
Mm.
lyrics and good music.
Yeah, it's. I think that's the one thing of that I love about the art of writing is like the story that comes behind like the lyrics, and or like the story behind like even the writing process of doing things. Today I heard an interview with Dave Grohl talking about something I didn't even know. I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, but I didn't realize that he played all the drum tracks for With Teeth back in 2004 because
Huh.
Trent Reznor's like, hey, I need a really good drummer and I need this sound. Would you? But I love hearing the story of like how things are made, like how that's all brought together, and like everything from like the lyrical side to like how it's produced. Like I don't like to know the story behind lyrics. Like I don't want to know what the song's about per se. Just for the fact that like sometimes my interpretation of what it is and how
Sure.
I emotionally connect to it, and then you come to find out it's about like, oh no, it was about my cat at home. Like it has nothing to do with any. It's like, wait a minute, wait. So like I danced with my wife to this at a wedding to this song that's about you and your cat. Kind of ruins
Yeah.
it for me. So sometimes it's better that I don't know what they're singing about, but I like to know how it's put together.
Yeah. Um, I love to find out what songs, all the details of how songs are made, so the inner working of it, the arrangement
Mm.
itself. So I did that actually during quarantine. Because I was learning Logic, I decided to transcribe Kid A and I put down everything but the drums. So keys, guitars, bass, vocals. I just wanted to find out how something I love was constructed and if I could learn anything from that. And I also did that I was thinking about stuff like Hotel California and Freebird. So I did a bunch of like the solos at the end where I played most of the parts. And just so I could learn, why is it great? How is it put together? Can I make it sound like that? Can I get, if they have a special sound effect in there, can I try to manufacture it somehow? And I learned a lot. So I put myself through Kathy College during quarantine. I don't know what grade I got, but it was super fun
So how many times a day do you pick up an instrument?
all day long. Because I teach, and like just before I talk to you, like seconds before I talk to you, I taught from 11 till now. And I do that a lot during the week. And so for that reason, I'm picking up the guitar. Then I have to plan for my lessons. So I'm picking up the guitar. And then I practice every day and I have to do yoga. So I have to kind of wake up early to get anything done. And yeah. So if I have a good day, I can practice for hours and hours.
Wow.
And
You
that's what
know,
I do.
it's it's interesting to hear how different musicians handle things. Elton John, who we were talking about a little while ago, who talked about he has no instruments in his house at all. He has not a single piano. Doesn't have a single microphone, nothing. When he leaves the road, like he has a studio that he'll rent out. He said states away from where he lives. He doesn't want to have it close to him because when he goes home, he doesn't think about music. Like it's
Wow.
completely, and it was shocking because you would think as someone with a voice like that in town, I would
Mhm.
assume that he's just singing his kids to bed. Now that's my vision. I mean, if I was that talented, I would think that, but yeah, he separates himself from that. So it's different
Wow.
to hear how people, incorporate music into different things. But yeah, he totally separates himself, which is interesting.
Well, I think that can be important too, because I do this thing where I walk without any sound because you can like figure out a lot of stuff in silence. And part of creativity I think is boredom. You have to be bored so you can try to start thinking thoughts in your brain, solving problems. And I definitely will have these moments where I'm just walking down the street and then I finally get a transition I couldn't come up with, or a harmony, or I did this. I just did a song version of Rainbow Connection for my friend Jay Goody, and I decided I was going to reharmonize the whole thing, and I wanted to reharmonize it so it was really dark. And so I would walk, and I just heard this one chord in my head that is super joyfully evil, I guess. I don't know. It just sounds like something bad happened. And I kept hearing this chord, and then the whole rest of the song came around it, and it only happened in that silence. So I could see it like Elton John probably just wants to get away from. He's been doing this for years. Like
Yeah.
enough already. He just wants to go home and pet his dog and have some chips or something.
I just I'm just thinking to myself, my whole life I've always connected Rainbow Connection with that little cute green frog, and now somewhere in the world is a very dark version of the Rainbow Connection that for some reason I feel like I just need, like, is there a Google Drive that you can just share all this music to that I can go
Oh
down this
yeah,
rabbit hole?
yeah. I'll send it to you. It's going to
Okay.
be released later this year. My friend actually might have played it on a radio station today, but yeah, it's just it's when I say doom, it's still pretty. It's still pretty. You know, it's not like I didn't do Cookie Monster voice or anything.
I feel like there's got to be someone in this world who can take your song and like mix it with Kermit the Frog's version and get like you like sitting on the log with Kermit while he has like his little banjo in the lake. I think we need that in this world. Like, I don't think there's many things that we need right now. I think we're all doing pretty good. COVID's kind of rolling by. I think now it's time that we get this Kathy and Kermit duet of a darker version of a Rainbow Connection.
I can't tell you how much I would enjoy that. That would be really great.
I
That
just
would be
see.
like my life's work realized.
I can see T-shirts.
Yeah.
Listen. I have enough people that work for me that I'm pretty sure we can make that happen. I'm actually as we're thinking, I believe if you give me a couple weeks, I think I could have that done. Yeah, I think we're
Okay,
gonna make this
great.
work. I'm excited
I
about this.
Okay, I want that. So I can't even tell you. That is all I want now. I'm not gonna be able to think about anything else.
I'm telling.
So I can talk about anything else. From
Just show's over. We ended it on at some point in the next 6 weeks, but we're gonna have a Kathy, Kermit, the just Rainbow Connection. T-shirt sales. We'll figure it out. Go to a charity. We'll get something going. We'll get this going. I will. This is you. Don't you worry. I'm going. I'm contacting the certain people. My poor daughter fell asleep on the couch.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, she
Fell asleep to the conversation about Rainbow Connection.
Rainbow Connection. No, she when I tell her I'm interviewing, females,
Yeah.
and especially the music, she came down when I interviewed Carrie, and she sat here and I have a screen that has the image so she can watch the interview and she can hear everything through the headphones, and I think it's interesting for her as a young child to kind of like hear things,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, we were talking about before, like she has recently, like she loves Bowie, she loves Prince, which is I love, but she has started like listening, like she's really digging Billie Eilish, and she's like that was the first time she came up to me a couple weeks ago. I want to see her in concert, so it was like the first time that she asked for something. I'm like,
Wow.
you got it. So it was interesting, and I knew she was tired. She did soccer today, but yeah, she came down, but she is out cold in a ball on the couch in the
That's
studio.
awesome.
But let's talk about it. So you sent a couple things over that we're gonna play.
Yep.
But what do you want to play first? We have the music video or we have the song?
Uh, so let's do the song. So
Okay.
the song I haven't released yet. It has been played on Chaos, which is Olympia radio station.
Okay.
It's called Mother Mary, and I won't tell you anything else about it, but it's the Kathy Moore Superpower Trio playing Mother Mary.
All right. So I'm gonna put an image up, and we're gonna
Okay.
listen to the music, and we'll come back right after we listen to it. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Let's do it.
Watch it swing.
You, Jesus, Kathy. Jesus Christ. I have. I wish I had like a fifth of the fucking talent that you have. It is ridiculous. You know, oh, listening to that song. First of all, I told you like I consistently go to like a visual thing. So the whole time I'm thinking like I can see a music video. I want you to take this journey with me for a
Okay.
second.
Yep.
I vision like a 1968 Mustang, a red one. It's got to be red,
Okay.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a female driver, okay?
Yep.
And she's wearing a leather jacket, kind of like rough looking. She's sitting in the car and she's driving through the desert. So the whole song's driving through the desert. There's a Virgin Mary sitting on the dash, and there's a crucifix. There's like the what are those what are those things like that? Not that the rosaries
The
like
crucifix?
no, not the crucifix, like the rosary, like the
Oh,
rosary hanging from the rearview mirror, and it like the video you're looking behind you, night day going, and then at the end of the song, it's like she's come up to a cliff and then she stops. Like I don't know why I vision that the whole song. I'm like, God, this is just like I don't know, but that was what I was envisioning. But I'm like, holy
that's
shit,
amazing.
this is an amazing song. Like it's just
Oh, thank you.
like that song belongs in a movie. Like I think that clearly belongs as an opener to a movie. Like that sets the stage for a movie. That was amazing. And then your guitar solo, like it's like wow, this song's amazing. And then you start doing a guitar solo. I'm like, oh, this is even better. And then you do it again, and I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy. God, that was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful song.
Oh, thank you. Well, that was going to be our first song that we released, and we had this whole thing. We were actually planning. There was a video that was going to be made to it, and I'm not going to release it until I can do the exact. Although what you just said is so cool because to me, the greatest music is music you can drive to.
Yeah.
Like when you want to get in your car, and especially if it's beautiful, that's a desert. Like you just want to think of the Rolling Stones, or just think about anyone that you love while you're driving. It's just the best.
Mm.
But so that was going to be released, and we actually put it aside because of quarantine. What we ended up releasing is the next song that I gave you, and the reason we released that first is I wrote it for my friend Sean Smith, who passed away.
Mm.
And so we released it a year after he passed away. And so that was nice to have that, that opportunity because we were in quarantine. So then, and I made the video that I posted, I made it. So it was the first video that I ever made. And I just learned how to kind of put things together. And basically, I just set my head on fire through the whole video, what the video is.
Sean Smith, you bring up his name, and I haven't thought about him in a while, was probably one of the most underrated voices ever. Like
Yep.
his vocal range, and there's videos of this. There's a video of a whole concert he did online of him and just a piano, and it was after his passing that I watched it, and I never got so emotional so quick from listening to someone singing, and that is a big loss. Like that was a huge loss, and because he was just man, I mean, people loved him that knew him and knew how talented he was, but I mean, he was just something special. He really was.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple people in town that I think of as sort of, not only did I play and make music with them all the time, but they were a little mentory to me. So Sean was one, and my friend Thaddeus Turner. Those are a couple of people, like, I feel like just being around them, I learned so much about songwriting. And, I being in the studio, playing in the studio with Sean was so great. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he didn't let anything slip that he didn't want to. But what he really wanted was your creative energy. So he wanted to do your arrangements, and then he wanted you to bring your full force of your creative energy, and that's what he responded to. So yeah, and what he could do just with the piano, or what he could do with Satchel and Brad and Pigeon Head. Pigeon Head's so great.
Mm-hmm.
I went down the Pigeon Head rabbit hole because I didn't know their music as well, and man, that stuff is so good. Satchel, I obsessively listened to Satchel, and I got to play with Satchel and Brad a little bit, which was really thrilling to play in both those bands, which I think are great. But yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely something special. So this video, which I'm hoping it works, for some reason, the first video I tried didn't work. In the beginning,
Okay.
we're gonna give it a whirl. So let's see if it comes up. Yep. One thing that I will say is that the two songs that you picked for this evening to listen to really show the difference in dynamics that you have as a musician and how you can do two different kinds of songs so perfectly put together in a way that people would give a limb to be able to do just one of them. That was that was an emotionally driven song, beautifully done. We're gonna say this often. I don't know why Pink Floyd's the topic tonight, but Pink Floyd really is like that is what I thought of, and even like the imagery was very Pink Floyd, and its sound. It was very powerful and beautiful and emotional. The guitar playing, the piano, the vocals, the range, the effects, everything put together in a package that comes through so perfectly sad, in a way that you fall in love with it. Because songs are supposed to make you feel certain things, and it's supposed to. And God, it was beautiful. God, it's beauty, amazing, absolutely amazing, cat, absolutely. Love it.
Oh,
So
thank you.
so great.
You know, the really cool thing about that particular song is we did that in one take. I mean, I overdubbed. I played piano later, obviously, because I played piano and guitar at the same time. But that was done in one take, and then I overdubbed the voice also.
Wow.
And um, the album went really fast when we recorded it, but that was the only song. It was just the three of us, and we just did. We all like moved together, and that's another thing. Like my bandmates are Faith Stankovich and Alyssa Martini. Faith on drums, Alyssa on bass. Alyssa also plays harp.
Wow.
They're such great, and Faith tap dances a lot in our band. Um, they're great musicians, and they're willing to be experimental,
Hmm.
and they're willing to um, be in the moment. And I feel like when we recorded that, it just kind of worked out that we were in it together, and we all knew and loved Sean, so I think that helps. That's why sometimes the meaning of a song can really unite people.
Hmm.
And I know that that's happened for that song with a lot of my circle has been really um, supportive of that song because of its connection to Sean.
No, it is amazing, and that's what I've always admired about music is the connection that it brings to people. Because the one thing that I love about music is that you know sometimes in life people come and go, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just it's part of the world, part of life, how we move on, whether there's just separation in a relationship, or unfortunately someone passes, there's always that. But when it comes to music, you always have that. It's never going to leave you. It's always going to be there. It's like this. It's a stamp of someone's ability and their emotions and how they're feeling at the time and giving it to you. And it's something that you can hold dear, and no matter what, it's always there for you. And it's
Yeah.
something that, like, music as a person growing up and not having much, and struggling through life, music was always there for me at different points because that was what got me through things. And you writing this song about Sean, which is absolutely amazing. It's kind of like your piece that you're giving of yourself, right? You're giving this piece of your music that you're creating, and a piece of your heart, of your love for this man, that was so talented, and giving it to the world. That's special. Because some people, it's tough for them to give that up, to give that piece of them. And this is, you. It's damn near perfect, Kathy. It really is.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a absolutely beautiful song.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it means a lot to us.
So with the band, with the Superpower Trio, and more things opening up where people can go tour, because I know that the
Mhm.
hardship of being a musician over this past year was that people couldn't tour. They couldn't, that's a livelihood, that's how people make money. What does the future hold for you all when it comes to touring in the near future?
Well, so it's the second that venues started opening up to having audiences, I got just rained with offers, which is really nice. And I've never had like venues reach out so much for one of my projects. So that was really nice. Um, And I think it helped that so Robert Fripp, who is one of my favorite guitar players in the world, plays with King Crimson, played on everything, right? He had also kind of promoted a little bit on his page, and so I think we got kind of a excitement from that as well,
Sure.
that I'm so grateful for. And then so at least we're going to be playing. We're going to do a live CD show
Okay.
with Stereo Embers, actually, and
Wow.
I'll announce that soon. Um,
Fancy that. I know those gentlemen very well. Typically, their music opens up the show. Unfortunately, Apple put an update out today that doesn't want to work with half the things I have running right now.
yeah, we have this fantasy about going to Europe and stuff like that, and the cool thing is that I've played in Europe a little bit, and Faith has played in Europe, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Who knows what? I don't know what's going to happen.
The interesting thing that I've learned, I spoke to a friend of mine who's in a cover band up in Boston, and they were telling me, and they would book pretty frequently. Like they weren't like a band that like they had to beg for. They book one or two shows a month. Because things are opened up there, and the way that things are progressing, he's booked all the way through October. People, venues
Yeah.
are just so this is like, and I think a lot of people, because the one thing I've said consistently is the one thing that kept us sane through COVID was artists, whether it
Yeah.
was musicians doing live streams, whether it was these like, reads from movies that's what kept us sane. Like that is what got us through. Listen, as much as we don't like the man, Tiger King, right? Like when that came out in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone watched that. That's what kept it was art that got us through things. Because a lot of crazy stuff was going on and it was music and movies and crazy. That's what kept us sane. And I think that a lot of people appreciate those people more. When ticket prices came out the other day, because some ticket prices, they fluctuated, whatever. People were like, well, whatever it is, I want to be able to support these people that gave us so much over this past
Oh man,
year.
people were so great during quarantine. Like people wanted to tip you for your live streams and over the ticket cost, and buy your T-shirts and stuff like that. And yeah, the cool thing is, I think people are so excited to play and see live music and be together that I'm sure that I'm probably gonna do a million shows with Gary Westlake. Do you know Gary Westlake also?
I don't. Is this somebody that should be on my
Oh
radar?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
I'm putting
yeah,
him on the list of things Anthony needs to do. Gary Westlake,
yeah,
done.
yeah. I lasso him into everything. Um, and he plays in Kim Byron's band also.
Really? Okay, I'm definitely
And
have to
he
check him
played
out
with
then.
me and Keith Dash and Jeff Rouse and Sean Zeller for years.
Really? Okay, so then
Oh
this
yeah,
definitely should be on my radar.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there's a bunch of concert. I have a bunch of. I'm booked almost till November now too. Just because
Good for you.
people were so excited at the possibility of having live music that they're like booking shows, booking shows, booking shows. And I mean, we've spent a year and a half indoors, and now we're probably going to never see our house again. We'll all be playing music together. We'll all go to each other's shows and be playing music. And
Oh man, that
I'm very
is
excited to play with Stereo Embers, though. I will tell you this, because there were two shows that were canceled. No, I had lots of shows that were canceled because of quarantine, but those were canceled the week of when we had to decide that we couldn't go out and perform live shows anymore. And Stereo Embers was one of them. We were supposed to do a show, and then also
which was that the one at where was that supposed to be at?
Sunset with Jack and Dino's band at the Sunset.
Ah, that's right. Rob, who I'm pretty good friends. We actually have a show together too. We do Rob and Anthony's World Tour where we listen.
Oh,
We do
cool.
this show where we for weeks we scourge the earth for bands that are not signed. And he brings an artist to the show, I bring an artist to the show, and then like people that tune into the show, they suggest the band, and we never listen to it. And then we go to the show, and then I hear his band for the first time, and everyone that's tuning in hears it for the first time. Then I bring a band, and everyone hears it for the first time, and then we both listen to the suggested artists by the people that we've never heard before, and we talk about it afterwards. And then recently we started to have like Tim DiGiulio was a guest, and we have some upcoming guests that come on and they bring in artists and we talk about it, and we go down a rabbit hole of just talking about random bands. And but no, that was kind of one of my quarantine projects, was that, because I love the idea of like finding new artists. And there's like
What a
three
great
artists.
idea.
Oh yeah, it was great. Like there's three artists that we found on that show, and most of them are from Rob. Rob just finds the best bands that I've just become hooked on. Like one in particular, Paul and the Tall Trees, absolutely amazing artist from New York, lives in Texas now, has one of the most amazing voices. Was a backup singer for Charles Bradley for years. Like, it was just crazy, and I love all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, great stuff, great stuff.
That's cool. How do you find these people?
Oh my God. So like right now, so I'm waiting. I mean, well, Rob's super busy. Like, I'm waiting to record the next 4 episodes with him. And so I've been doing work. So basically, like, I Google search and I Bandcamp and I do all these things. I look at different countries. So like, I have a band from Poland for the next show. I have a
Wow.
band from North Dakota. I have a band from Africa, and I have two bands
Wow.
from Canada. So, and then I have a laundry list of people that were that like listen to the show, that have sent us artists that we've never heard of, that we can throw in. But yeah, it's clever. I just love music, and like I said, it's just, I think it's that ability of like, I love the passion behind things. That the work that goes into doing things, like listening to, when we were listening to that song just a few minutes ago and listening to your guitar solo, like, it's, to me, that is the same, like listening to that and closing your eyes and visualizing you playing that is exactly the same feeling that I would get like going to a museum and seeing the Mona Lisa, because the amount of passion that was put into that painting, that was like, art to me, I feels like it's a piece of you that you're giving up to give somebody, like when it comes to music and art. So like, I always like, that passion that's put behind it always fascinates me. So I love that. And I love the idea of like that. So like listening to music and that driving factor has always been, a huge part of my life.
It's interesting. I was studying voice with Sue Carr I studied with her on and off. And at the time I was playing with everyone else. I've done a lot of studio work for other people, and I hadn't recorded any of my music necessarily. And she said, you got to put your music on a recording, because, that building out there, someone created that, and people will see it for generations to come. And where's when you play live, it's lost in time, which is fine. Maybe it should be, and that's great too. But there is something about putting something down somewhere so that if someone really loves it, they can revisit it over and over again. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about music. Like, you think about all your favorite albums, what they mean to you, not only because they might be interesting and complex and all that, but it also might trigger your nostalgia, or why you began to love music, or where you met your first boyfriend, or whatever it is, the first concert you went to. It's pretty thrilling.
Well, before I get into some more questions, for the people tuning in, because we have had a lot of comments coming across, just sending a ton of love your way, and I'll post some comments in a minute. If you have any questions for Kathy, this would be the time to ask. We could post them up and ask Kathy. I'm going to run through some questions I have for her. Just as I come along with things. So if you have any questions for Kathy, this would be a time to ask. Talking about concerts and first concerts, do you remember your first concert?
I hate answering this because I'm so uncool. Like, okay, just to let you know, I grew up very happily conservative. Like, I did. I mean, not. I'm liberal. Always been liberal that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But just like, my family was just happy to be a family. We didn't do anything, so we didn't really get to go to concerts or anything. So the first time I got to go see a concert was Wang Chung. I know, isn't that the worst? Like, I'm the worst person. I mean, I was listening to cool music, like the Police. I was obsessed with the Police. That's what
Uh-huh.
Kate Bush, Bjork, the Police, Prince. Those were the things I was obsessed with. But the first concert I went to was Wang Chung. I
I,
know.
I feel like, have you covered a Wang Chung album? Is that something that I need to be on a Google Drive?
Oh, and by the way, as I say that, those people can sing. They can
Yeah,
really play their
100%.
instruments. Those are great. It's not like that's not a good thing. It just maybe didn't stand the test of time the way that some other things in the same way
It
that
wasn't
Led Zeppelin did.
it wasn't Milli Vanilli.
It was not really. I mean, that guy sang some pretty high notes.
Yeah, it was pretty.
It was
It's
a
pretty.
good concert.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thinking back, like my first concert was Styx in Kansas. They played together.
Oh,
Yep, and it was during the Grand Illusion tour.
oh. Okay, I
Mm,
love Sticks. I don't care what anyone says. I love them.
Styx is
Fine.
great, and that's one of those
Okay.
those bands that like you ever like just want to go like get lost into something like that's the Grand Illusion's a great. That's another great concept album of like just it's beautifully done. Kansas, that guy was just he was playing the piano on his head like yeah, it was just crazy. And then it wasn't like it was only like days later I went and saw Kiss. Like that was like my week of my first shows I saw
Wow.
live. Yeah, a
So
long
you
time ago.
saw good shows then.
Yeah, so my father had me at a really young age. He was 16 when he had me. So like when as I was getting older, like if he wanted to do things, then like I had to go along with him. So like I was just like the shadow to him wanting to go see music, in the 90s, because that was like that was if he wanted to go, I had to go with him. So it worked out to my advantage. Like it was a good thing. I don't know if he really wanted me there per se, but if he wanted to go, he had to take me.
But how cool is that? I mean, that
I
I'm a
did.
musician because of my dad. So, your parents are such a huge part. Like I look at my friends with their kid, like RL Hire and his two kids, how talented those kids would be. My friend Faith, Jen. I mean, they go across the board. These people with kids are raising their kids right to love music and to play music and not be afraid of experimenting with things. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, like with my son, like he's seen Kiss twice. He's seen Pearl Jam a
Wow.
bunch. He's
Yeah.
seen like I like as soon as my kids turn 5, I'm like, you're going to concerts. Like you need to experience this. Like because my thing is like I had an opportunity at a young age to go see the Ramones. It was taken away from me, and I never got to see them. And the same thing with Prince, and the same thing with David Bowie. And to like this day, like that stuff just it just
Wait,
it
so what do you mean that it was taken away from you?
So the Ramones were playing at Looney Tunes on Long Island, and
Yeah.
a friend of mine's dad was a big Ramones fan. This must have been '96. It was a long time ago, and the opportunity was there, and I think I asked permission to go, and he's like, no, you don't need to go see that, and I was like, I begged, and I didn't go, so it was taken away from me.
Hmm.
So like I'm very hateful. Like well not hateful. I'm very disappointed in my dad for not letting me go for that show. So that was something that stung. And then with the Prince situation, I that was my fault. And the same thing with David Bowie. David Bowie was a girl's fault, and I'm not with her. But David Bowie, I had tickets. It was David Bowie and Nine Inch Nails, the tour in 2002. And I had tickets to go see him, and she's like, "Well, we're supposed to go somewhere. I don't know wherever it was, maybe movies or dinner." And she's like, "You could see him next time they come around." Well, there was never a next time, and I never got to see them. And Prince, I just was like, "I'll catch him when they come around," and I just never went. And yeah, so now anytime anything comes around, and I'm like, "This might be it." Like I'm taking my kids. Like it's just like this
That's
is
great.
something you'll whatever it is it's going to be something you go to. So like I know my son's seen Kiss twice, but they're coming again for this last tour. I don't know if it
Oh yeah.
is, but it is the last tour, but it's not. I have no idea. But yeah, music, I feel like music is a connection, so that's why we'll do whatever. But no, gotta like, love
That's
music.
great. Yeah, that's great.
So is there an album that you have that is like your go-to album, like regardless of how you feel, like that is your album that you jump to, like musically wise, that is your like that's your bread and butter?
Well, man, there's a lot. So I'm going to just say one,
Okay.
which is Hounds of Love by Kate Bush.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Um, so uh, we performed that. My friends performed that at the Royal Room. And we do it in its entirety. And everybody that comes to see it are huge Hounds of Love fans. And that's a special group because not everybody knows Kate Bush and not everyone knows that album. But people who know it know every moment of it. And it feels super emotional to do that.
Mm.
Um, and I will also say I've been transcribing a lot of the Police lately. And, that's been pretty fun because when in high school, that was like my band was the Police. But I don't know. I have so many like Love Supreme. John Coltrane. That's like the best album of all time. So if you say that, you can't say it. Wes Montgomery, Smoking at the Half Note.
Mm.
Emily Remler, East to West. King Crimson, Three of a Perfect Pair. I mean, I could just go down a list. Beatles, Revolver. PJ Harvey, Bring You My Love. I just said I would just say one, but I can't.
It is tough. It is a tough question. It's one of
Prince,
those.
Sign of the Times.
Oh, great album. That is a really good album.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really good.
yeah, I think one of the cool things too, Beck, when you look at albums, like I think albums define a piece of you at a certain time in your life, like when you were listening to it for the first time, so it can bring you back to those moments that maybe you forget about. Um, I don't know. That's why I always love I feel like you have favorite albums from favorite times, and they all kind of like make the
Oh
soundtrack to your
yeah,
life. I
yeah.
always fantasized about I know this might sound silly but it's always like, if you had a soundtrack to your life, like how would this age, like what would that song define like that time period or album define that
Mm.
time period? Like,
That's really interesting, though. I might. That's the kind of stuff that I find very fascinating. I might try to figure out what that means for me because I think that's really cool to define different generations by the music you were listening to.
sure. I
A
mean,
lot of music I really pull apart and try to figure out how it works. And so that tends to be the stuff that lasts for me the most if it's more interesting.
yeah, during quarantine, I had a lot of free time to think, and one of them was like, well, if I made a movie about my life, with Brad Pitt playing me, of course, what music would be playing at that time, like at different times of my life, like when I was 11, I remember that time, like what was the influential music, and what would be that way if I had to give my kids, like I always make playlists on iTunes, so like if God forbid something happens to me, like I want them to be able to like go there and be able to have playlists that are defined to certain things that they can go to and be like, all right, my dad listened to this and understand why he listened to it. But I was like, yeah, I wonder if there was if I could break down a soundtrack to what that time in my life meant and what songs, did things
Mhm.
and there's songs that I have a relationship with my kid with, like me and my daughter, if she at nighttime, if we want to, have a moment of just a slow dance, it's always Billy Joel's Lullaby. Like that's our song. Like we dance to it.
Oh,
Um, and then me and my son, I remember there's certain songs like Queen's Father's Son, like that's a big song. Like
oh.
so there's always moments or definitions of certain things. Me and my wife danced to, oh my God, she's gonna kill me. I hope she's not watching. I tip my tongue. Fade Into You by
Oh, Mazzy
Mazzy
Star.
Star. Yeah, that's what we danced to at our wedding.
Wow.
So it's these songs that bring memories and moments of our lives back. That's why I think music's so special. To some people it's just music in the background, and to others it's this moment that as we get older and my daughter gets older, she can think back and and maybe I'm gone or something like that, but she can listen to that song and that can bring her back to those moments of us dancing together, or my son, it's that's what I love about music. Music's special. Music's a healing piece, and whether it's those slow songs or whether it's those badass songs, which you gave us both this evening, which is amazing, and I am so grateful that you did that. No, it's pretty amazing, and I'm looking forward to having, I plan on coming up to Seattle again at some point and seeing you play live, because I don't know. I mean, your music is outstanding. Your guitar playing is amazing. I mean, for the man, like I said, to me personally, I've seen a lot of guitar players play live, been God hundreds of, if not thousands of music shows, and I still think Mike McCready is probably one of the greatest guitarists I've ever seen live. And
Yeah.
rumor has it that you might have taught him a thing or two. And if that man learned anything from you, um, yeah, then I'm gonna that's pretty special. I'm gonna have to see that.
Yeah, he is amazing. I always tell this story. We were doing Flight to Mars, and we had just performed, and so we were off the stage, and I went back to like whatever you do, brush your hair after you perform, and they were playing, and it sounded great, whatever. And all of a sudden, my ears perked up. I knew something really special was happening, And I don't know if you've ever seen Mike McCready overtaken by some sort of like beast or something, like he disappears and he's just in this flow of um, I've never seen anything like this night. He and his shirt was off, I think, and he was on the ground writhing, and then he took his guitar and he just broke the amp and he broke the guitar, and it was so thrilling to me, which like I would not break a guitar, that would freak me out, but it was like the right thing. I've never seen anything that great. Just someone in the heat of passion, in the flow. But the thing that's crazy to me is I was in the back room and I heard the change. I didn't see it, and it wasn't because I was standing there and knew that something had happened. I heard it, which is so crazy to me that you
Mm.
could hear someone going into flow and being lost in the moment. And that's something that he's able to do, and most people don't really ever get to experience that place. So yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
pretty great.
He is a pretty amazing human being. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. A question, and one of the other questions that came up, and this is a good one, and this is making me think. The question is there any songs that were popular during your life that you didn't truly appreciate until later in life?
Yeah, Neil Young. I also did not really like Neil Young when I was young. Um, and especially hated anytime he would go into country sounding things. So I liked Hank Williams Sr. and Johnny Cash, but I didn't like country sounding things per se. So uh, what's the Harvest?
Harvest Moon?
Um, yeah. Oh, I love that song, but the Heart of Gold.
Oh, Heart of Gold.
That
Okay.
song for some reason drove me crazy, and you know, I think that it was hearing his stuff like Down by the River, and when I started hearing that stuff that was more rocking, it sucked me in. And then I started really listening to all that other music and fell madly in love with it. Like that's probably one of my favorite songs, Heart of Gold. But I had to go around to get to it. I had to go through the vehicle that I love, And the same, by the way, and please don't nobody hate me when I say this stuff, but it took me a really long time to like Bruce Springsteen. I just didn't his voice. I just didn't get it.
Well,
And I'm like on a Bruce Springsteen tear lately. He's such a great songwriter. His live performance is unbelievable. So I feel like I'm giving a gift now because I didn't like it for a long time.
actually Thursday. His tickets go on sale for the live on Broadway, and my ass is gonna be like in this seat. I told my wife, I'm like, I don't care what day we get it, we're going. Like I'm just like big. I'm hoping. I doubt I'll get a ticket though. Um, but no, Springsteen's. I can see that because it wasn't until later in life that I really. I think Springsteen's music is made for that for an older, understandable people that have gone through things, right? Like I think his
Yeah.
music really defines people that really go through things. One artist from me that I didn't get when I was younger, and I think it was because their popular stuff was, it was always on the radio. But Talking Heads to me was a band that later in life I didn't appreciate David Byrne until like you really appreciate Talking Heads. Um, yeah, like that's God, like that's a band too that drives me. That's like why they're all live. I still think so. I think they're all live. They're all
Yeah, I
live.
think so.
Why can't we just give us like just give us something like that? You're so darn talented. Just give me something. Like give me the ability to have the opportunity, a chance to see you. Um, but he puts out some pretty weird stuff. I watched that HBO special of his like Broadway show, and I get it. Like he's very artistic and he's different. I was just like, how about we work on getting the Talking Heads back together? Like let's roll that in, but maybe I don't know.
I think that sometimes, so by the way, this question is really interesting to me because a lot of things that I truly love now, I hated when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I love Shakespeare. Like I went on a Shakespeare tear last year, and I hated Shakespeare through high school. I hated that they made me read it or, act it or whatever. I hated Hemingway, which is one of my favorite writers now. Um, I could just go down. In my favorite film of all time is Blue Velvet. The first time I saw it, I hated it, and I was so offended by it. It's like almost like I have to resist the things that I truly love. That doesn't always happen because sometimes I just let like the first time I heard Animals or Three of a Perfect Pair, I was like, oh, finally, this is, I've been waiting for this. But yeah, sometimes you got to get over your resistance. I tell my students that too, because I'll have students say they don't like certain styles of music. And I'm like, you will, you probably will. Call me, you could call me any time of the day. Let me know when you finally like, XYZ country, opera, whatever, Prague.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't, I agree with you. There, it is like we're when we're as we grow up, there's certain things like, I don't like it. It is what it is. And then it's like, why didn't I like it? Like, when you think back to, it's like, what made me not love, that? Like, I mean, we were talking about Animals, like I always thought Pink Floyd's The Wall was their album, like growing up. So like when I was up until I was 16, and then Dark Side of the Moon came in, and I'm like, well, no, this is the perfect album. Like this was amazing. And then it was like Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, back and forth. Because I mean, and then it's like, Animals, like, it is what it is. It's only 5 songs, but really, it's not 5 songs. It's a journey. It is a marathon of music, and I still think that is probably it is their best album they've ever created. I think it is better than The Wall, and that's tough, but just something more musically developed in Animals that I loved more than I do love The Wall. So.
Yeah.
It's difficult because, like, to me, like, keeping it on the Pink Floyd realm, because I can talk about Pink Floyd, that's another one I can go down. But, like, David Gilmour comes out in the 90s, and there's still Pink Floyd, but it's not Pink Floyd. And, like, at that time, I didn't really like it. But then if you listen to it now, that's another band that's quite, like, 90s Floyd, like 88 to 97, when, or I guess.
Learning to Fly.
Learning to Fly, yeah. Dogs of War. I guess they went with the whole dogs theme.
That's a good song.
Yeah, and then like they just put out this album a couple years ago. It was like a musical album. I don't know if you've listened to it or not. And it was like Richard Wright. It was the last thing it was a lot of piano. So it's an album in tribute to him after he passed. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I can look it up real quick. But that is probably one of the most beautiful sounding albums just put together. And there's no words. And these songs are absolutely like just epically put together. It's amazing. And I think it was the last official Pink Floyd album before it was like, now they just call it whatever they call it. I don't know. I can't find it. But yeah, if you look, it's the latest Pink Floyd release. I don't know. I have to look it up more. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah, it is. It's just.
I mean, look, David Bowie's last album. Is it his best album? It's not, but it is. Like, you could make an argument for it. It's such a perfect album. How great is that album?
Did you watch a documentary about that? About like how?
Yeah, and I cried all the way through it.
Oh my God! Yeah, and it was like these musicians at the end were like, we didn't know nothing. We knew nothing. We just knew he wanted to make an album, and then he's coming in and he's going, and at that time those people thought that he was being, like an asshole because he's just coming in at certain times and then he'd leave, but then they didn't realize that he was coming from chemo, like he was trying his. Like, God, yeah, that hit me in the damn feels. And I mean, it is, God, that voice, like the way he played his characters, it's something special. And I will tell you something, and this might not be a popular thing, and people might not like me for this. There is someone right now that I believe is the David Bowie of this generation. I think that this female has played characters in all of her albums. She is an absolutely amazing singer. She has portrayed, like, she is in total character mode with her new album. She has a very eerie.
Lady Gaga?
No. I
mean, I'm sorry, not Lady Gaga. St. Vincent.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't mean Lady Gaga. I mean, I love her too, but I meant St. Vincent. Yeah, the new album is the best album of the year.
Oh my God.
Who's going to beat that?
There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
The only thing that could beat it is if D'Angelo put out an album. Other than that, it's going to be this album. And maybe not even that.
Yeah, well, unless Radiohead truly does put an album out this year. And then maybe we have some fighting.
We do have the Anderson .Paak thing, so maybe if Solange puts out... But that, St. Vincent album is...
God, I've seen her quite a few times. I got to photograph her in 2013 at a show. I think I have the print somewhere. I have this huge print I took of her, and I got to meet her. And I just remember it was this small little venue, maybe 200 people there. and she was playing with just and her ability to play was amazing. She had another female guitarist that was absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, just her music is genius. And every album, her first two albums were just her, but then she started getting into these characters
Yeah.
and like themes and stunning. So yeah, to me she's like
Don't
a
you
modern.
think David Bowie would dig her and want to play music with her?
Oh God, 100%. 100%. Look at David Byrne had an album out with her about 6 years ago. They put an album out together that was very Bowie-esque in its own sense. But yeah, no, God, she is stunning, stunning.
Yeah, she's so great. Anna, David Burns did another album with a guitar player named Anna Calvi, and if you don't know her, you should look her up. At least the song they did together. She's a wonderful guitar player. I think she's Scottish. I don't know, but she's great. Her voice is interesting. Her guitar playing is interesting.
Adding her to the list as we speak. Yeah, it is amazing. Well, listen, I promised I'd only keep you an hour to an hour and a half. This has been, and listen, I'm not complaining. I like conversations like this. Like, I love learning about people, but I also love just talking music in general, and I've got to do both with you. And it's been absolutely a pleasure. I adore your music. I adore your style of play. You're an absolutely amazing musician, and I'm so glad that you came on and got to talk for a little bit. This has been an absolute pleasure. Kathy, if people wanted to purchase your music or purchase anything, I was going to buy a t-shirt, but unfortunately you don't have anything that fits this figure.
We'll talk about it afterwards. I do. I think I think it's not on the website, but I do. So we'll talk about it afterwards.
Good.
And if any of my friends, they wanted to get, I have all kinds of stuff. So just
nice.
let me know. Send me a private message and I'll hook you up. But you can get the music on Bandcamp.
Okay.
We also have, you can get it on our website, both the CD and our t-shirts. We have, we'll be announcing our CD live release with Stare Embers soon. And I have a video that just came out yesterday, which is Fracture Around the World, where 37 guitar players played this impossible song written by Robert Fripp. And it's pretty thrilling to play with the guitar players. That some of them are my heroes, and it's very cool. So yeah, a bunch of cool stuff happening.
Well, I can't wait to see what the world of Kathy brings to our lives. Definitely check out her stuff. You can also check out her music on Spotify, iTunes, and all those places. And I would highly recommend at nighttime, just let it play in loops. Get her those couple cents every play gets her. Let's keep it rolling, because every play counts, right? As they say, because I mean, unfortunately, that is where the world is nowadays. But before we go, the album that we were talking about by Pink Floyd was called The Endless River. It was released in 2014, and it is the last Pink Floyd album, and it is all instrumental. It is a very long album. But you definitely give it a listen. Well, listen, Kathy, what I'm going to do is this. Because my music doesn't work for the Stereo Embers, which I wish you could hear it. But what we're going to do is we're going to end the show with a snippet from the song that you gave us a little while ago. Kathy, hang tight. We'll close out in just a moment. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the Touring Fan Live. Once again, we just made the announcement a couple weeks ago. We are going to be live for our first live event in Asbury Park before See Here Now Festival. The event page is on the Touring Fan Live's page. We're going to be making some announcement about some musicians playing there, a new initiative with some artists and ukuleles, a lot of big things happening, some new show announcements coming along the way, new staff members. The Touring Fan Live is growing rapidly, and I'm so grateful that you're tuning in. So thank you for tuning in to Touring Fan Live. Thank you, Kathy Moore, for coming on. And until next time, just keep listening to Kathy's music.